Hello, Christopher Noël here, coming to you today with a very different kind of video. Over the years, like most of you, my frustration level has been steadily rising. It's kind of like the old analogy or parable of the frog in the pot, and the heat gets turned up so slowly that he's not even able to notice before it's too late, and he gets boiled. Well, I don't want us to get boiled. And here's what I mean. We, as a field, have essentially been in a holding pattern for many years now. We have individually been actively researching, steadily adding to the mountain of evidence and first-person accounts. It never quite seems to be enough, though, does it? But in another sense, when we step back and really look at it with a cold eye, we have to acknowledge that we have been quite passive in that we have not grabbed onto a narrow political and practical plan of action to force the tipping point to arrive. On some deep level, we have allowed ourselves to be used, to be programmed and brainwashed. We've been patsies, chumps, fools, and we can't let this continue. We must mobilize, assert our rights. There is a treasure trove to be discovered just beyond the horizon. Certainly so much more than we have been allowed to know as the civilian research community. In fact, we barely know more now than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago. We don't have any better video evidence than we did 52 years ago with the Patterson-Gimlin film. The one exception, I think, to this fundamental lack of progress is a dawning recognition that their territory is so very close to ours, at least part of their territory, and that this territory often honeycombs our own. In fact, this very reality is a major catalyst for the movement that I'm initiating today. Okay, here's the basic gist of the matter. Number one, the citizen's right to know the truth. The powers that be are not entrusted with the power to conceal from us any basic feature of reality that we might very well come into contact with, and that at the very least we deserve to be aware of. Number two, vindication for thousands of eyewitnesses and experiencers who have doubted their own sanity, who've experienced ridicule and rejection from those they know and love, and or have decided that they must keep secret what it is that they know, that they saw, that they experienced, and that probably invades their nightmares. Many people experience PTSD in the wake of an unpleasant or extremely traumatic encounter. This by itself would be reason enough to force the truth into the light of day, to remove from these thousands and thousands of people the heavy burden that they've been under. And number three, our government's duty toward us includes public safety and education. Of course, the education piece circles back to our right to know the truth about reality. It cannot be denied that a certain small percentage of Sasquatch are not friendly toward our species, and in fact they have kidnapped children, kidnapped adults, and in some cases we never see them again. It's simply unacceptable for the forces of suppression to allow us to naively go about our business, most of us not having the faintest idea what is out there. The powers that be know what is out there, as do some of us, but most Americans and Canadians are being kept obscenely in the dark.
They like kids, according to my native tribe's beliefs. And there's so many reports about it. And even me, when I was building my cabins in 2005, I was working on the porch of one of the cabins. My dog was lying on the ground, and all of a sudden he stood up, hackles, growling, looking at the bush to my left at this bank with trees. And he's walking towards my son. So I grabbed my 30-30 rifle, put it beside me, and I walked down behind my dog towards my son. And as I got about 60 feet down the beach, to my right, I could see the Sasquatch standing behind a tree, big bugger too, about 7 foot. And he was just looking, eyeballs beaming at my son, just looking at him. And I just looked, yo, Bajos Chonacha. Hello, how you doing? I don't know who you are. What do you want? And I said, you leave my Wisabidu, my little boy, alone, because I'm taught. You taught your native language to them, which I did. That big Sasquatch just looked at me and then gruffed and then turned and walked up the bank of the hill, but not quietly. It let me know and let me see that it was there. So yeah, they have a big curiosity to children from my experience and from the stories I've heard. And, you know, you look at 3 months ago and that little boy went missing for 2 days and he came out in North America. He was with a bear for 2 days. No bear in the fall is going to look after a little kid that's going to eat it and poop it out.
Then came the surprising turn in this story. Casey's aunt revealed on Facebook that Casey said he hung out with a bear for 2 days. Miracles do happen.
He said that he was in the woods, and I asked, like, who were you with? And he said, a bear.
The search coordinators themselves are baffled by it too. The ones they don't think is criminal in nature.
I mean, to me, being a parent, I can't see my 2-year-old climbing over 2 mountain ranges in the dark. That's pretty hard to believe. And there's some cases where little kids are alleged to have walked up to 20 miles overnight or climbed phenomenal heights, 3,000 and 4,000 feet.
So, what is my 3-point action plan? First, those of us who now recognize the truth, and it's a growing circle of us, that Sasquatch operate often very close to human civilization, just feet away from our back doors, we need to begin beating the bushes. That is, finally getting over our shyness about speaking with our fellow citizens. This will entail, first, searching our local micro-forests and larger forests that come right up to our neighborhoods, and when we find likely Sasquatch structures in these forests, proceed to interview the residents whose property abuts these forests. Many times, individuals in a neighborhood will have had experiences, but they are extremely reluctant, for good reasons, to share these experiences with their neighbors. It's often the case that a whole bouquet of people in a neighborhood know what they have experienced, but never talk to each other. Those of us who join this movement will be holding town hall meetings like they did on Finding Bigfoot. Those were very effective. And even neighborhood meetings with a narrower focus than a whole city or region. This effort will all be geared toward raising awareness and gathering witnesses for step number 3 below. Second, we will be flooding local, state, and provincial governments with Freedom of Information Act requests, or FOIA requests. Canada has its own parallel mechanism that we can work through. We can organize ourselves and provide moral and tactical support for one another, and submit hundreds of these FOIA requests, all at about the same time. It's crucial that we act together. There is power in numbers.
Okay, so you want information about something the government knows. You can actually ask for it.
I filed probably around 1,500 open records requests last year, including a little more than 1,000 for one project that I was working on.
Are you serious?
I am. I can FOIA anything. I'm not going to get everything.
So, step 1, figure out what you want, which agency has it, and write them a request. There's no special form you have to fill out. You write a letter.
All the states and provinces have helpful online resources that will guide you through the process of submitting this FOIA request, including letter templates. It's not hard at all, and it's free. And of course, I'll be here to help you every step of the way, as I verse myself on all kinds of details and pass those along to you individually and to the group through regular live shows. I plan to start live shows every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in the near future, so be on the lookout for that.
Another aspect of the movement is that we won't just be attempting to extract information, but we'll also just be igniting a massive wave of further public awareness. I mean, public awareness has been on the rise for decades now, especially in the last, 10 years since Finding Bigfoot. And since the proliferation of research groups and researchers and YouTube channels and Facebook venues, but the more we can go to the media with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of compelling eyewitness reports, coupled with video and audio evidence, the more just kind of close we can get to the saturation point. Right now, maybe 20% of people who are aware of the reality of the species are also aware of the kind of ubiquity of these accounts and this evidence. This is to push it into that other 80% to achieve much greater penetration, as they say. Given the simple fact that in many cases eyewitness testimony is good enough for a courtroom, once we can multiply these witnesses and their evidence by several orders of magnitude, the courtroom parallel will become more and more relevant, and the sort of undeniability will further and further crystallize. And this will only serve to further fuel and catalyze, galvanize the legal track that we're working on too. The two sides of this, the court of public opinion and the official court system, they will cross-pollinate one another very effectively, or set up a really productive synergy, whichever concept you like. If we have enough people on board, the whole process will accelerate and accelerate, gain momentum over time. I'm launching this initiative on July 1st of 2019. I really hope that by next July 1st, we will already be seeing clear-cut fruits of our labor.
Of course, these small group meetings will be a perfect venue for us to recruit further members, those who are interested and may know of activity in other neighborhoods that you may be completely unaware of. Then a certain percentage of them will be motivated by your enthusiastic example to begin canvassing those neighborhoods themselves, fleshing out further witnesses, setting up their own small group meetings, and eventually perhaps being part of a new wave of FOIA requests. This community organizing will become a self-perpetuating process that will build upon itself. When our first wave of requests almost certainly gets denied, that's exactly where we want to be, believe it or not. That's our sweet spot, because then we file an administrative appeal and exercise our right for our day in court. At this point, we bring in the media. We contact the press and television stations until we come into contact with interested members of the media. In this way, we will stir up massive publicity. Whatever you may think of Todd's standing, put that aside for the moment and acknowledge the fact that he has at least managed to break through the hard shell of denial and obscurity that our subject suffers under, and has caught the attention of national and international media. Todd and another person, Claudia Ackley in California, have managed to stir up a great deal of public interest as well. And now imagine that instead of just 2 activists like this, we had hundreds out there spread across the United States and Canada, virtually simultaneously taking their appeals to court and to the court of public opinion. Local news stations and then national outlets will pick up these stories inevitably and run with them, and the buzz will then feed on itself until it becomes blatantly obvious that this is not some piecemeal effort by isolated players, but instead a coordinated continent-wide movement with only knowledge, safety, and compassion at heart. Compassion for our fellow Homo sapiens, and compassion, of course, for our next of kin in the forest. The greater the pressure that gets applied to the powers that be at every level, the greater will be our chances of prying free the information that the authorities hold on to so tightly.
Happening this morning, a BC man is taking the provincial government to court for damaging his credibility by not recognizing the existence of Sasquatch. For more than a decade, Todd Standing has hunted the legendary creature, commonly referred to as Bigfoot, and he believes he has enough evidence to back up his claims.
The miracle that this species exists blows my mind, and the fact that CTV News and all the different news networks report on Sasquatch sightings from reputable people like police officers and fishery officers, and Fish and Wildlife never investigates it. I don't know how they can continue to do this. People that are very reputable are seeing this species. Professors, PhDs, survivor men have all investigated it and found that this is a very relevant topic and that this species exists, and we need to get this discovery process moving forward.
All I kept thinking about is please don't get near us because I have my children.
Claudia Ackley says she was walking down this remote trail near Lake Arrowhead when it happened.
Are your kids scared?
Oh, they won't come out.
It was dusk, March 27, 2017. She says her two daughters saw it first.
They're standing right there, frozen, just looking at something.
And you're thinking?
There's a bear.
But she says it was no bear.
I swear to God.
She says what you see in this video she took that day is a Sasquatch. She called the authorities, but says no one believed her.
She goes, I'm sorry you saw a bear. I said, no, this was no bear. Like, I know what I saw.
Now she's filed a lawsuit suing the California Department of Fish and Wildlife for refusing to acknowledge the existence of Bigfoot.
There's a lot of people that come on this trail, and I want public safety more than anything.
I'd like to draw your attention to a brand new website, showmebigfoot.com, put together by Gary Schutte and long overdue. A compendium of researchers and groups numbering 560 entries and counting. This demonstrates just how industrious our community has become, and yet how fractured, splintered, lacking a central, call it a control room or situation room, from which a sustained and focused campaign can be managed. No one else seems to be doing this, and my plan may not be perfect, but I'm willing to take it on and to invest a great deal of energy and time. Please join me in our new Facebook group called Sasquatch and Civic Duty. We will learn and grow and improvise and evolve as we try things out and adjust our techniques. Now look, here's the somewhat awkward part, although really it shouldn't be. I do need some seed money to get this thing off the ground. I simply won't be able to do it if I have to spend a great portion of my days, as I have been, editing people's books, which is my usual revenue stream. There will be all kinds of logistics and ancillary costs, both foreseen and unforeseen, that will arise. As we get further along in the process, there may be attorney's fees and court costs. I'd love to be able to establish an ongoing fund to defray these costs for people or to take care of them entirely.
A lot of people have said, well, Chris, why don't you just do a Patreon channel? Personally, I've just never wanted to embrace the kind of insider-outsider structure. I always want to put everything right up on my public YouTube channel, where I make about $21 a month.
So I've set up a GoFundMe campaign. You can read about it by following the link below. As a side benefit for you, besides just jumping on board with this action plan, any contribution, if you're able, I don't want anything from you if you're not able and not interested, not excited about this. But if you are able, at least $25 contribution will get you a signed copy of Next of Kin, Next Door, How to Find Sasquatch a Stone's Throw Away. Or, if you'd rather, my even newer book, Mind Speak. Heck, I'll even send you a signed copy of the now older book, The Sasquatch Savant Theory. In speaking truth to power, like we're about to do, we're, of course, going against deeply entrenched interests. We can all imagine various reasons that the forces of suppression want to maintain the status quo. But as in any cover-up, there are bound to be weak spots, human error, places where the defense is only paper thin. And that's why we need to poke and prod everywhere we possibly can. This is why we're targeting local, state, and provincial seats of power rather than the federal government. If you're able to support this movement financially at this point, that'd be great, or maybe down the road. But most importantly, please join the Facebook group so that as many of us as possible can put our shoulders to the wheel here. Thank you.